It's time for the Alien Conspiracy Podcast. We are your hosts, Agent ETA,
Agent Ether,
Agent Kruger,
and Agent Anderson. Come along as we examine UFO sightings, conspiracies, and all things strange. You can follow the show on Twitter at AlienConPod. We also have an email address, alienconpod@protonmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Discord. Links in the description. This week's episode, the Nazca Lines.
Yep, speaking of all things strange, that is, the Nazca Lines is the definition of.
Yes. I think if you want to summarize the entire case, the Nazca Lines are strange. Case closed. Short episode this week, people.
Hey,
they're strange and
great. We'll see you
big.
later.
Yeah, well, that's what she said.
That reminds me of this one time.
All right, so what are the Nazca Lines? For anybody unfamiliar, we're talking about what are basically geoglyphs. And geoglyphs is basically a fancy word for, when you were a kid and you would like draw stuff in the dirt with a stick? It's kind of like that, but much bigger, right? So big that you can't even tell what they are. If you're walking on the ground, it just looks like a bunch of lines. You can't even see the shapes unless you're flying in an airplane overhead. And that's basically what we're talking about, is these big, giant geoglyphs. It's in the Nazca Desert in southern Peru. And they estimate that they were made around 500 BC to 500 AD, which is kind of weird that they've been preserved for so long. They're basically depressions that are 4 to 6 inches deep in the desert floor. The top dirt is made of like a red-brown pebbles that are rich in iron oxide, and underneath of that is like a yellow-gray clay kind of a soil. The clay underneath has lots of lime, which hardens over time when it's exposed to the moisture in the atmosphere, and that created like a protective layer that helped to preserve the lines. The lines vary in width from about 12 inches to 6 feet. The region itself is on a plateau, and it doesn't really have much wind or rainfall, and this allowed for the preservation of the lines. It's one of the driest places on the planet, and it's about 77 degrees year-round, so the temperature is also very stable. So you think, if you look at the lines, they're like 6 inches deep, and they're like a foot wide. They're really kind of small. How did this survive if they're like 2,500 years old or something? It's pretty crazy, right? But it's because the weather is so stable. There's basically no weather there at all.
And actually, I question that in that I wonder if they knew how to preserve them, if it was done purposefully.
Right.
This act of preservation, like what kind of knowledge did they have and were they preserving it for the future?
That's it. Yeah. It's an interesting question.
Well, and also, originally they could have been much deeper as well. They're obviously not going to be, they weren't always the same depth or raised up above, because some of them are gouges in the earth, I guess you could say, and some of them are also like piled up rocks too. But, how long have they been in the state that they are in now? Originally they could have been a little bit bigger, but not much. But some of these things are gigantic. Like that one, the herring, is like 285 meters long. It's huge, and not just the figures, but the lines too. It's just like some of it a lot of it makes no freaking sense.
Yeah. I think the longest line is like 9 miles long, and it's like a perfectly straight line. How did they make a perfectly straight line 9 miles long? And it goes over uneven terrain.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was just about to say.
Yeah.
A lot of these lines are going over hills, some of them mountains, and it's how the hell, exactly what you just said. How do they keep that straight line? Some of them are basically perfectly straight, and they've also studied this from like satellite footage as well. And even like the orientation of the satellite when it was above was very precise. So they knew that like they were looking at something like that is actually observable from space. Some of these lines, it's amazing. And the culture that supposedly did it too, from what I understand, they weren't supposed to have had any written language, for example. Like they're supposed to be pretty primitive.
I've
And I
heard
don't
the
know.
Stone Age has been referred to it. Yeah. Very primitive. But then again, I
Yeah.
feel like it's hard to actually, understand where they were unless we could get
Yeah.
that firsthand, which is, impossible.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Was there actual like natural viewing area for this?
I think
Like,
there
I
were
was-
plateaus and like higher mountain areas where you could view some of the
Yeah.
geoglyphs, but definitely
Yeah.
not all of them.
And viewing them from these, you would probably be seeing at an angle that you wouldn't really be able to see it in its natural looking shape.
entirety.
It would
Yeah.
look like elongated or weird. I've read, I think it was something like 1,500 feet is the elevation that you would need to be at to see them like really well, maybe a little higher. And I don't think there's any mountains around that are like that high that you can look down on them from.
Well, they're a recent discovery
Yeah.
too. And if you think about it, they're a recent discovery because they really can't be seen except from the air.
Right. They were,
Yeah.
I mean, people knew about the lines. Like the earliest mention of them was, it was in a book from 1553 by Pedro Cieza de Leon. And well, that's a sexy ass name right there. Pedro
Right.
Cieza de Leon, right? I can't say it right, but he thought they were just like trail markers. He didn't realize that they were big pictures. And it wasn't until more recently when Peruvian pilots and civilian and Air Force pilots were able to see them from the air in the early 1900s. And that's when the first people really realized that they were big pictures, not just sort of random lines on the ground.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it was just a bunch of dudes that were sitting there like, "Hey, bro, I bet I can make a monkey right now. Watch, check this.
Yeah.
Check
But-
the spider out."
Yeah, the largest glyphs are I forget the exact for what I have here. I don't know if this is accurate, but what I found was they're between 440 and 1,200 yards across, and their combined length is like 800 miles if you were to line all of the lines up, which is a pretty significant amount of lines to be drawing in the sand. 800 miles. That's a lot of work, even if it is only 6 inches deep.
Yeah. Well, and they're still finding new ones to this day too. We haven't found all of them.
Oh, there's a lot all over the place. I mean, surprisingly. I mean, we got them in England. We have them here in the United States, Kazakhstan. We got them all over the place.
Yeah, near Blythe, California.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And then we also have, I know there's one that I know you would definitely like. It's in England. It's like of a giant. And I forget if it's like 180 feet tall. And he has like a schlong about 50 feet.
Nice.
And that's a geoglyph worth time.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. This is definitely the one that I'd want to show the aliens.
Well, you think that was like ancient porn of some sort?
Or it was just maybe it was a warning like, "Hey, watch out. We got plenty of spiders down here and monkeys and there's snakes."
And we also swing a big hammer too.
Yeah. That one named Thor? But the glyphs in Nazca, they're still finding them today because I guess some of them are not that easy to see, especially the ones that are built on hillsides. They're sort of eroded.
Yeah.
But they use like drones and like I don't know, AI and stuff to find them. I think Agent Ether is going to talk a little bit. Do you want to talk about the AI right now? Agent Ether?
Yeah.
I just wanted to throw this in. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've also heard that it's reminiscent of a runway. And I picked this up back in the days of good old Ancient Aliens. So they were saying how it was shaped as a runway. And when you look at it at some angles, it's like, yeah, I could get that. But
Yeah, there are definitely ones that are very large rectangles, very elongated.
Yeah, I think the ones that are rectangles.
Well, there are some that are elongated rectangles that overlap. It looks, to be fair, it looks exactly like a runway. It really does. Now, I don't think that it is a runway. I'll just go on out on a limb and say that right now, but it does look exactly like a runway, which is kind of fun, right?
Yeah.
right.
Well, these geoglyphs too, these large geological figures, they're actually like complexes. So you'll find like almost like systems.
So I was very surprised to find out that like these pictures in the dirt, whatever you want to call them, these geoglyphs. It's not just the geoglyphs. There's actual artifacts and structures around them as well.
Mm-hmm.
And some people have surmised that it could be like a worship area or somewhere to make offerings. You know what I mean? And like some of the offering areas, like the altars that they have found next to some of the elongated rectangles, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they found like seashells and like stuff like that, like stuff that is related to like the ocean or water, and they think that maybe that, some of these areas at least, they might have been making offerings to like, their gods to bring more water. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, one of the geoglyphs was a giant whale. I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, bring that fat ass water over here.
Yeah.
I remember what I was
that
saying.
whale said.
I was saying these geoglyphs are actually complexes. They call them complexes because there's kind of like batches of geoglyphs where it's almost like you're drawing and the pencil was never lifted from the paper and they're connected by lines so that you have a couple together. Then you have these, runways essentially where they're connecting the drawings.
Yeah. And the runways, when you look at a picture, like an aerial view of all of them, you can see like the things that look like runways have a bunch of lines radiating out from them, sort of connecting everything together. It's really kind of weird looking. Ooh, this dog's being a butthead right now.
He's so noisy.
Yeah. All right. But before we get more into it, let's say a little bit about like what kind of glyphs there are. So we mentioned a couple of them, but in general, there's a variety of different types of glyphs, right? Some are like straight lines, some are geometric shapes, others are more elaborate and they're like animals, plants, or people. The most common type is birds, and many of these birds appear to be non-indigenous, but the way the pictures are stylized, it looks pretty difficult to me to like pin it on a specific species. They don't look like a real bird. They look like a cartoon bird where it could be any species of bird, really,
There's other figures though, animal figures that weren't indigenous to the area.
Right.
The monkey.
Yeah,
and my favorite. I'm sorry, my favorite.
Right, exactly, like the monkey. And I've heard
the astronaut.
Or the astronaut. But I've heard it explained that they knew about these animals because of long distance trade. If you think about how arid the region is, how little water they're going to be getting, they're going to import a lot of their goods that they need. They're going to trade from far off distances.
And they may not have even lived where they made the glyphs, right? They may have lived in surrounding areas, but where the glyphs are is really inhospitable, and it would take a ridiculous amount of work to live there. Why not just live where the actual water is,
Yeah.
But there's some theories about that, but I'm sure we'll get to that later.
The city of Nazca actually has like an ancient irrigation system that's still in use to this day.
Right. That's
yeah.
It still works. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's still solid work.
Yeah.
The way they describe it too, it makes me think of Dune. You guys read or seen Dune, where they have like the underground aquifers and they're all like linked by tunnels, because they have a lot of like descending spiral staircases in Nazca where they're like ramps lined with river cobbles, like really elaborate kind of, system.
I really hope, as a side note, that new Dune movie is going to be awesome. I really
Let's hope.
One can only hope. Yeah.
It looks cool. I mean, as long as it isn't as wacky as the original movie.
Well, here's the thing with David Lynch. He was the director of the first one. He does a lot of stuff that's weird, and so I'm not hating on David Lynch. I know he's got a lot of fans and stuff, but to me it seems like he does a lot of stuff that's just weird for the sake of being weird and no other reason. Like it doesn't seem to fit into the movie. Perfect example of how like Baron Harkonnen had these weird like pus things on his face.
Don't do it. No, I knew you were going.
Yeah, and like they'd have this doctor guy like sucking the pus out of his face. Just
like why?
Like why?
Just to ingest it because he's
has nothing to do with anything.
That's just as bad as Dr. Pimple Popper. I know that's a popular channel, but I can't watch it.
Is that on
man.
YouTube?
Why?
I knew somebody who was on there.
I think so.
That's so
yeah.
funny.
You knew someone
that
who was
show.
on there personally?
Yeah. I was like kicking back, and I was in New Hampshire. I'm a Cali boy, so me being in New Hampshire, that's like on a different planet. and I'm watching TV with this a family I just met because like my niece is over there with their daughter to go to dance. Anyway, I'm sitting there and all of a sudden I see somebody I know. I'm like, oh my god, that's so and such. Ew! Like just freaking out. Never looked at, and they actually couldn't fix what was wrong. So
that's a sad story.
Yeah. Oh no, it's fine. It's fine though. Like she's fine, but it was like, wow.
I just don't need to see all that.
I do not. That show is evil.
But getting back to the old movie Dune, it's when was that movie made? I should Google it because I have my computer in front of
I
me.
want to say the 90s.
90s? No,
like early 90s.
No, it was before that.
Then.
Was it the early 80s, like 83 or something? Or
some of. Well, let me.
I have no idea.
Let me Google it right now. Actually, so Dune movie, that should come up with some result, right?
For some reason, I 1983 popped out in my dome piece.
See, 1984. Oh, damn, that was close. That was close.
That was close. Hot damn.
Yeah.
Look at that.
But
I dig it down.
So the thing, David Lynch's eccentricities aside, it was a really good movie, and I think the special effects still hold up pretty well for what they are. I mean,
yeah.
They got like those giant worms. Like I remember back in the day when I was a kid and I saw that movie looked awesome. And they got like those voice weapons or whatever, whatever they do, it was just like such a really crazy flight of fancy. It was just really a fun movie.
I want to say I'm one of those people, though. The book was way better.
The book was way better. I got to admit.
Of course.
Although it kind of, I don't know, the book series, if you've read any of the later ones.
No, I don't like the series, just the first book.
It kind of gets really weird,
The second one's okay.
It's okay, but after that, the books go off the rails, in my opinion. Plus, like the thing is they're not going to have in the new one that they're coming out with, they're not going to have Jean-Luc Picard in there, right? What's his name?
Yeah. Oh God, Patrick Stewart.
Patrick Stewart. He's such a good actor.
Patty Stew.
He's not going to be he was in the original one. I doubt he's going to reprise his role as which one was he? Was he Duncan?
I don't know, but
I'm pretty sure he was Duncan.
That guy has sold his soul to the devil. I swear, you look at him in any decade and he looks the same. He's going to live forever.
Oh, no, he's looking pretty old now.
Yeah, because he's like, what, like 80 or something? He's so old
hell
now.
If I know. If you saw him in that Picard series, he was looking pretty frail.
He's old then, yeah.
Don't talk to me about that series.
Yeah, no, that series is sheer fucking hubris.
No, it's not even, it's the writing, man. Just don't get me started. It's just, they took his character. He was like a really, I don't want to go down that tangent. Never mind.
I
He's
think
a
we
hero.
should get
And like
back
the way this,
to the
all right,
lines.
so yeah.
Well,
We've gone way too far off track here.
I'll just summarize it by saying he was like just an ultimate hero. He's a really good captain, whatever. He's just a great character in the TNG, Star Trek TNG. That show, if you see the scenes that he's not in, that show sucks. He made that show work, right? That's how good of an actor he is. But in the new one in Picard, they turn the captain, they turn him into like the ultimate cuck, and it's just they ruin him. They ruin the character. I don't understand why they would go that direction. Yeah. They take like one of the most beloved characters in the entirety of the Star Trek franchise, and they just completely ruined him. It's stupid. But anyways, let's get back to the Nazca Lines.
Well, Agent ATA was talking a little bit about religion.
Yeah.
And the significance of the Nazca Lines when it comes to religion. And I just wanted to mention that the people themselves were polytheistic. They worshiped nature, and they actually thought that their ancestors came from constellations, and when they died, they would return to the heavens. So it makes a lot of sense that they're creating these large, these large geographical structures.
Yeah, that are also aligned towards constellations, right?
Yeah. Well,
not really.
Some of them are, from what I understand.
Not really. So, there were groups of people. There wasn't like a centralized government or centralized city. There were groups of like 1 to 200 people that lived together, and each of them worshipped a different god. So one theory is that these geoglyphs were actually representing the different gods that each sect was worshiping.
So it was like graffiti, like all these different groups were like, nah, my God,
Yeah.
motherfucker. No, my God, fool.
Well,
Spiders,
yeah,
assemble.
Yeah.
a lot of archaeologists they've made the assumption that it was for religious purposes because that's pretty much what they always do when it's something that they don't really know why it was there. But I was thinking, what if this was like a dick measuring contest before SUVs and motorcycles were invented? You know, like you couldn't just go buy a bigger
Keeping up
SUV
with
than
the
your neighbor,
Thompsons.
but you're just like, hey, dude, I could build a bigger glyph than you. You know, like they build
I'd
one
buy
that's
that
like
for $1.
500 feet across. Be like, okay, well, I'm going to build
You're
one
like-
that's 600 feet. You know?
Getting more and more elaborate over time as well.
Yeah.
I built a big condor. Oh yeah. Well, I built a big monkey. Oh yeah.
Fuck
well, I
your
built a big
condor. I made a
whale.
box.
Yeah.
Oh, you like a whale, huh? You think that a whale's badass? How about a giant spider? Fool, what's up?
I made a man who broke his back.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that makes sense because some of the lines like intersect and they're like drawn over a previous geoglyph. So it makes me think that it really wasn't planned out all together as one structure.
Right. Okay. That
Or
makes
it could have
sense.
been who was ruling at the time. It's like, no, if you're living here, you like spiders. And then the next one was like, no, if you're living here, you like birds. Boys.
Well, to be honest, one of my favorite theories that I heard about was, so basically, think of it like this: like a very primitive civilization encounters a very advanced civilization, and then they're in contact with them for a short period of time, and then that advanced civilization leaves. Well, that primitive civilization has probably received quite a few benefits from just contacting those people because they're going to learn something, for sure, whether they are given something or just through observation. They're going to learn that other things are possible that they didn't know, right? And there's actually a good example of this during World War II. The cult of what's called John Frum. Have you guys ever heard of this?
No.
It was in the Pacific. It was on an island called Tanna in Vanuatu, I think it was called, or Vanuatu. I can't pronounce it. I apologize. Anyways, so this primitive tribe was contacted by an American soldier because there was American soldiers stationed right there in that immediate area, because obviously the Pacific Theater, and so that person was, he introduced himself as, I'm John whatever from America, and so that tribes member thought his name was John Frum. Right. And so I guess they gave these people all sorts of different stuff, like supplies and stuff, and MREs, I'm sure, and stuff like that. But after they left, these tribes people were like, they saw all the ships, like the planes and all the technological advancements that they had, and they basically thought that these guys are gods, and so They started basically like a religion I think that's called cargo cults. I think is what they're called.
I think you're right.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of the car. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they made they kept up the runways that were made by the Army or the Navy, whoever made it, Air Force, whatever, dude. I don't know. Anyways, so they kept up these runways. They made like bamboo planes and like towers and stuff to recreate what they had seen, hoping to draw back this advanced culture that they had encountered. So to bring it full circle, possibly, in Nazca, maybe that there was a primitive people that encountered an advanced people, or maybe aliens, for example, right? And maybe they're trying to draw them back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
By making, so, and the reason why some people think this might be, I think it's I don't know. It's it's definitely a good theory. I like it. But yeah, I mean, maybe they encountered aliens, and the reason why you can only see this stuff from very high up is because they knew that's where the aliens came from.
Yeah, and that's one of the strangest things about this is that let's say that pick a religion, for example. If they build a monument to their religion, it might be big, it might be oversized, they might build a ginormous statue, but I'm not aware of a whole lot of stuff where they build some sort of something that's so big that you can't even see it when you're standing next to it, right? That's how big these things are. So it's just sort of makes my imagination go wild that why would they make these things so friggin' big? They could have made it 20 feet across and it would have been effective. Okay, you make it 20, 30 feet across, you can still see what it is, and the gods can see it too if they're up in the sky, right? Because they're gods. I'm sure they can see it. But these things are, in order to, I mean, you really have to look at the pictures of them. If you've never seen them before, these things are just massive. Like, it's just really hard to understand, how big they are if you haven't seen them for yourself. But it's hard to fathom why they would make them so big.
Yeah, absolutely. And this area is definitely on my bucket list. Like Peru, just Peru, as far as like megalithic structures I want to visit in my lifetime. It's
Machu
like it's up.
Picchu.
It's oh hell, well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's Peru. I think one of the tour groups that I'm interested in, I think it's called Hidden Inca Tours. I think it's what it's called. But I'm very interested because they'll take you to like all the different sites that aren't like very popular or even like excavated. So
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah,
I like that.
but yeah, oh yeah, Peru has it's endless. It's endless. All the different sites, But
These Nazca Lines, though, they're in the middle of nowhere. I mean, sparsely populated. There's like a couple villages on the way from like the major cities, and then just like nothing, just this arid death valley. It's just, I can't imagine people living even near there, because Agent Anderson mentioned, people probably didn't live there directly, but even if they lived, 10, 20, 50 miles from there, it's not very hospitable.
And it's hot as shit. I mean, they're begging for water. I mean, literally they're, casting anything out for help.
Well, yeah. And like just to you repeat, I think we mentioned earlier, this is one of the most the driest climates on the planet.
I think
period.
we get 20 inches of rain per year on average.
Yeah. Well, and it all comes down at once, basically, too.
It'd be nice if we got some of that in California. We could use a little bit of that rain.
Yeah.
But you know what, though? That rain is a very interesting thing to talk about because some of these geoglyphs actually seem to have like drainage structures below them. When it does rain, and when it's very rare, like we said, but when it does, sometimes it tends to all come down at once, like, within a minute or two, and then that's it. You know what I mean? But it has been observed, and it seems like a lot of these geoglyphs, like they don't get wet like the surrounding areas do. Now, I mean, what people think that means is that there's like drainage systems below them, and around the city of like Nazca and stuff also, and some of these, there's a lot of tunnels and stuff. I'll just say, like, it's not just the, to deal with like water and stuff, it also has to do with drainage. And some of these tunnels that have been found, like they head towards the area. Now I know that it's far away from Nazca. It's not like right there, but there are a lot of geoglyphs right pretty close, and I don't know. I think that's pretty damn interesting, that it's not just what you see on the surface. There's stuff below also.
Well, and we're talking about water, and one of the theories that I came across was that it's simply a memorial, a memory of the Great Flood.
Mm-hmm.
Could you elaborate on that a little bit more?
It's very interesting.
No, I mean, it's quite simple, It's so there's this guy, Robert Bast from Australia, and he just said, there's all these animals and plants and human shapes lying together on the ground, and many of the cultures in the world have these myths. You can find, in a lot of different cultures, the same story. So
yeah.
The way they were lying, it's almost like a memorial or a grave representing the Great Flood. Yeah.
Yeah. The flood story or the flood myth is one of the most common ones as far as like ancient, like shamanic or ancient religions go. It's even there's a flood myth in one of the oldest stories, if not the oldest stories, the oldest epics, at least the Epic of Gilgamesh. Right. I mean, there's a flood portion of that, a flood story portion of that as well. I don't want to digress too much.
I would say the most popular one I think you'd be referring to is like Noah's Ark, right? I mean, that one.
Of course, yeah.
From what I understand, every culture pretty much has a flood myth of some kind or other, and there is evidence that there may have been massive flooding, but that's maybe a little too far afield from the Nazca Lines. I don't know. based on the timeline of the Nazca Lines, it would have been way before they were built. Though, so the way that they estimate is they found some wooden stakes at the ends of some of the lines, and they carbon dated those wooden stakes, and that's how we get a rough estimate of 500 BC to 500 AD. And the most recent flood that I'm aware of, again, I'm not like a historian or anything, but as far as I'm aware, probably sometime around the Younger Dryas, which would have been like 12,000 years ago, would be the nearest candidate for the flood myth.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the Younger Dryas, not the beginning. I think the beginning was 11,600 or something like that ago.
Yeah. Something like that. I forget the exact numbers, but I think we talked a little bit about that on our third episode, when we talked about Göbekli Tepe.
Göbekli Tepe?
Yeah.
Go back, you guys. It's an early episode, but go back and listen. It's a good one.
I'm actually more and more, as the years go on, becoming more and more of a fan of not just like a meteorite impact to either start or begin the Younger Dryas era, but a solar flare, because there's some decent evidence on rock that has been like superheated, in certain areas of the world, and the only thing that people think, scientists think that could make that happen is a solar flare, that would hit the surface. So, but anyways, I mean, we're getting off topic again here.
Yeah, but one more thing about the solar flare is that if there was a massive solar flare, it could have caused like plasma to occur all over the planet, like in the atmosphere and stuff. And if you look at a lot of cultures have this drawing of like this man with a bird head, right? And we're talking about cultures around the globe that should not have ever had contact with each other. And they all have a very similar drawing with like this man shape with a bird head. That's a shape that occurs naturally when you make plasma sometimes. And you can go look up pictures of this. It just blew my tiny little mind when I saw that. I was like, whoa, that's crazy.
I think, was it Robert Schoch that originally put forward that hypothesis?
I don't know if he originally put forward, but that's the first place I saw it was on his website. And it's pretty dang interesting. So yeah, go look that up too. I mean, this is a whole rabbit hole you can go down. Is the the ancient solar flare theories, or and then there's genetic bottlenecks we could talk about, where they think that at one point only 3,000 people were left on the planet, and they can prove that using like the genetic record or something. But let's not go too far.
That's like mass extinction events. I mean, we were down to 1%. We were down to fucking nothing at one point. But I mean, that can be explained age dating those sediments and everything. The rocks tell us.
A lot of the ancient references to that have everything to do with the precessional cycle as well, which I find very interesting. But
my takeaway from the genetic bottleneck is, hey, you look across the table at your significant other, that's basically your cousin,
Thanks.
Sinner.
Thanks for that.
So hey,
mental image.
If that's what you're into, more power to you. If not, better get used to it,
I don't know. They carbon date these stakes, but couldn't the Nazca Lines be a lot older?
They absolutely could.
If you think about it, they carbon date it based on not only the stakes, but on the ceramics of the Nazca people.
Right.
But that's
a little flimsy.
Right. What's to say those lines didn't exist before the people settled there? And because these lines and these shapes are depicted on all their pottery, it implies that they might have seen them from the air, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they made them.
Right. I mean, there could be some kind of relationship there, but like the saying goes, correlation does not prove causation, right?
Right, exactly.
And so along those lines, one of the interesting hypotheses that I read about was in 1969, Eric von Daniken, who's, I'm sure you're aware of, if you're listening to this show, you probably know who he is. He proposed that the Nazca Lines were built by aliens. And then later on, a dude named Joe Nickel, he reproduced the figures by using the same tools that the Nazca people were thought to have had. And this was supposedly disproved the idea that aliens had built the lines. Now, I'm not really a fan of the hypothesis that aliens built the lines, because it seems like sort of a crude things for aliens to, like, they're going to traverse the stars, come here, and then, pick up a big giant stick and draw some stuff in the sand.
Yeah, if you compare them to something like crop circles that we can do using simple tools,
Yeah.
I don't think they're that sophisticated looking.
But
These geoglyphs are amazing, but they're definitely within our capability.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah,
But
definite appeasements to the gods.
on the other hand, though, I just want to point out that the logical fallacy here, I'm not sure exactly what you'd call it. They all have Latin names, and I get them all mixed up. But just because you were able to take some sort of tool set and make the lines doesn't mean that's how those lines were made, and that doesn't prove who made the lines. That just proves that you were able to replicate those lines with a certain set of tools, right? So I don't know exactly what you'd call that, but I mean, think of it this way. If I bake a cake, right, and I use a certain set of tools, and let's say, I don't know, Dwayne Johnson bakes a cake, that doesn't prove that he used the same set of tools that I did, right? So it's just sort of long. He could have used improvised foil things to frost the cake because he dropped his fork and he didn't feel like cleaning it or whatever. I don't know. You can come to certain conclusions and it does suggest certain things, but on the other hand, it's not proof in and of itself.
That reminds me of this guy who built a balloon. You read about this out of
With his lawn chair.
No, out of the same kind of materials that would be available to the Nazca people, like their cotton and a basket. And they made a hot air balloon so that these people could, go up. And he managed to get it up for about 15 minutes, and I feel like...
And then he plummeted to his death.
No, nobody plummeted to their deaths. It was up there for 15 minutes.
Dipshit.
And is that enough time to view them? And how does it mean that they made them? I don't know if there's a relationship there.
Well, a couple of ideas. First of all, if this was this guy's first attempt, you're talking about people, they didn't have the internet, they didn't have television. All they have to do is just sit around and twiddle their thumbs all day. So they probably, if they had the technology to make hot air balloons, they probably would have made a bunch of them and they would have perfected it and got them to work for longer than 15 minutes. Now, that said, the main problem with that particular theory is if they had built hot air balloons, there would have probably been some sort of evidence. And you would either have found some of the balloons or replica or remains of the balloons, or you would have seen drawings of the balloons on the pottery or just something, just like a hint of them having had that technology.
That's a good point. There's nothing on the pottery.
There's not a shred of evidence that these balloons ever existed.
They've recovered tons of ceramics and they're very elaborate, a lot of different colors, some of the most colorful pottery in Peru. And they're very almost three-dimensional, the way that they kiln them.
Yeah.
And they depict different stories. So as you turn the pottery around, the ceramic around, you can see battle scenes or, a story. And you're right, I've never seen anything that looks like a hot air balloon
right.
on the ceramics.
I didn't do a deep dive on this one, admittedly. So I'm speaking of, third-hand information here, but I did read up on it a little bit, and there appears to be zero evidence that they actually made a hot air balloon. It's a fun idea. I really like the idea, but there doesn't seem to be anything to support it.
Well, how about just magic? How about they just made them using magic?
I like that.
I love magic.
By a little boy named Harry.
Yeah, this was actually...
Who lived in the cupboard under the stairs.
This was actually an archaeologist, Professor Kaufmann Deutsch, who proposed that they were magic in origin, which, somebody who has the name professor associated with themselves suggesting that it was magic just tickled me.
Was it an online degree?
I don't know. I guess it could have been like an ordained minister kind of situation.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm an ordained minister. You guys know that? It's from the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster.
Nice. I think I signed up for the Church of Dudism. I'm pretty sure I'm ordained there somehow. I don't remember how exactly, but if I'm going to go balls deep in any religion, it's going to be that particular religion, because why wouldn't you?
Sounds like fun for the whole family.
Yeah. White Russians, awesome rugs that really tie the room together. I mean, come on, dude. What more do you want out of life,
All right.
All right. Let's see here. I think so. I had some theories and stuff that Agent Ether sort of mentioned.
You didn't mention the hallucinogens.
Oh, did I? I thought I did mention that.
No.
Everything's built
Oh,
with
I mentioned that
hallucinogens.
before the show.
I told you to save it for the show.
Oh, damn it. Okay.
Agent Anderson was talking to me about show topics before the show. I kept telling him, don't do it.
All right. So one
You
theory.
do it.
One theory I read about that I found very compelling was that the lines were drawn not for somebody in the sky, but for shamans or anybody doing like a ritual involving hallucinogens, and it gave them an out-of-body experience, and their soul or their spirit or whatever you want to call it was able to rise above the ground, and up there, then they would be high enough to see the glyphs, the shapes that they made. And the reason I find this one so interesting is because there are like so many people who have reported out-of-body experiences and strange things. We touched on it on an earlier episode. It's like, I don't know what to make of it, but it's hard to just dismiss it outright when so many independent people have reported very, very similar things. And I'm talking about things like, hovering above their own body and hearing conversations when they were supposedly comatose or like in a state of like, being medically dead, or even hovering above the room or above the building they're in or stuff like this. I don't know what to make of it. But on the other hand, on one hand, it's hard for me to like take it seriously because it's something I've never experienced. But on the other hand, it's hard for me to dismiss it because there are just so many reports of it that it's kind of makes me wonder, like, is this really a possibility? I think it might be. So it's a really fun theory.
Oh, totally agree. I totally would get behind that one. Get really high and just start drawing shit and then land. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, I think we touched on a little bit already. I think Agent ETA was talking about it. Is that a lot of people think that some of them were astronomical. The problem is that some of them do kind of line up to where the constellations would have been, but a lot of them don't. But a fella named Albert Russell Castro proposed in 1977 that there might be multiple categories. He suggested 3 categories. So one of them would be different tracks connecting irrigation. Those might be like the straight lines. Different axes between mounds and cairns, so like burial sites, and astronomical glyphs. So his idea is basically that the glyphs were not all created for the same reason, but there are different purposes for each set of glyphs. I think Ancient Ether was also talking about this a little bit.
You know what it makes me think of is the Voynich manuscript.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit, and if you think about, they could be like ancient writings. Maybe these geoglyphs
Interesting.
were actually hieroglyphs and represented, a language, a written language.
Huh. What were you going to say, ETA?
Well, I was just going to say that some of these lines end up like lining up with the sun on the horizon during like the winter solstice, for example.
Yeah, they do. And that's why I was saying earlier, I was sort of like, well, maybe, but it's hard because if they were all astronomical things, they don't all line up to astronomical things, right? A lot of them don't.
Yeah.
But if only some of them were meant to be astronomical markers, because some of them do line up and some of them don't.
I think
but
10%.
yeah.
10% line
So
up.
if some of them were astronomical markers, some of them were for other reasons, then that would explain why you can't classify all of them under any single definition. They couldn't all be for irrigation. They couldn't all be for astronomical purposes. They won't all fit into a single use definition. So it would make sense that there's multiple categories of them. So I kind of like that explanation, even though it doesn't necessarily, it doesn't address why you would build these things so freaking big that you can't see them unless you're way up in the air, but besides that, it's still a really interesting idea.
Well, I'd like to point out that, if they're much older too than we think they are, if you think about how astronomy works and the direction of the stars changing over the centuries, I don't know. I'd like to see a model where they go back in time.
Right.
And try and, date them as being older and then seeing if they coincide to more, astronomical figures, zodiac signs, whatever.
Yeah. Well, and like I was saying, if you look at the whole area, there's these glyphs and there's like these runway things, but there's also these straight lines that run throughout the whole area. And when you look at it, it looks like a map of some kind. It just looks really weird. It looked like it's somehow interconnected. It doesn't look like just individual glyphs that were randomly drawn. I don't know. It just looks like a coordinate system or something. And some people think that it is a map of like coordinates for like somebody flying overhead or something, which I'm not sure I buy that like space aliens would need a big giant map drawn in the dirt to find their way around. I mean, if they came here from another star, they're not going to need that sort of stuff, right? But I mean, it does look kind of like some kind of map. I don't know. It's weird. I don't know if you guys saw those pictures where it shows like the whole area.
Oh yeah. What if it's like a little road map just for the locals? Maybe they were trying to build like Spider City, Bird City.
That was the original Thomas Guide, right? You guys remember those things?
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Oh,
You had to have one for each county.
Yeah.
I just remember getting so lost. I am so happy for my phone.
Yeah, it does make life a lot easier. For all you kids out there.
I still have one of those maps in my car as a backup.
For all you kids out there, before the invention of the cell phone, before navigation apps and before TomToms and Garmin, whatever, you used to have a book for when you were driving outside of your town. It was just a book with map grids on it. And you'd have to try to find where you were on the map and how to get from point A to point B. It was doable. I mean, it wasn't the hardest thing to do.
You have to know how to read it.
Yeah.
You know?
It wasn't impossible. It was just a pain in the ass.
I have a horrendous sense of direction, too.
It's definitely a good analog backup. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, as long as you have like one that's updated and like has the majority of the current roads at least on there, you could navigate your way to where you need to go, you know?
Yeah. Oh, they're useful. They're definitely, if I had to go through areas with poor reception, I'd probably have one, but luckily I don't have to that often. And when I do, it's usually a straight shot from point A to point B. There's no detours, you know?
I'm having flashbacks. I think I'm having some PTSD.
And then MapQuest came and ruled them all.
Yeah, there's the occasional, error in when, Google Maps will take me to the wrong spot.
Or the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, or, it'll glitch out. But in general, it's pretty good,
I remember
I've
ending
had that
up
happen running late for work.
I remember ending up in like empty fields. I'm like, this cannot be the right way.
This isn't the LA Opera. What the hell is this?
Well, especially when Google Maps first came out and there were like newer areas, like newer cities that were being built.
Right.
And it would get really confused. And then I would be really confused.
Yeah. So another idea to get back to the Nazca Lines, you like that? I'm getting better at the segue there, guys. You see that one? That was masterclass level right there.
It was quick and crisp.
Yeah, but getting back to the Nazca Lines, some people think that it wasn't just like to say, like a map or something, but it was actually some sort of communication, either us communicating to somebody in the sky where, it would be aliens, or aliens trying to communicate with us. Because like I said earlier, it wouldn't make sense that aliens would come here and then draw some stuff in the dirt with a stick. But if aliens wanted to send us a message and they wanted to do it in such a way to where we had to develop a little bit to receive that message, I mean, it's plausible that it could be either direction, either people trying to send a message, draw something that would be visible from the sky, or aliens trying to basically encode something that we wouldn't be able to really view until later on. And the thing that kind of makes me wonder about that, like I don't really think that's the case, but some of these geometrical patterns are really elaborate. Like they have like ratios, like the golden ratio encoded in them and stuff.
Well, some of them are extremely advanced, and like what that tells you about it also is whoever did those particular geoglyphs were very mathematically advanced. Like for example, the Estrella star in the category of Estrella, I guess you could say, right?
Yeah.
That one is whoever did that, they knew their mathematics. There's no doubt about that. And it also it's similar to in the Hindu religion, like was it the palpa? Is it what it's called? That religious symbol? You know what I'm talking about?
I'm not familiar with that symbol.
Yeah, neither am I.
I think he's making it up.
Well, yeah, you're right. No, I vaguely remember like reading something about this, but you know what? I don't know enough to really. I guess, comment on it fully. But I was hoping, I was putting the fishing line out there. I was hoping one of you guys like knew more than I did about it. You know?
I mean, I have Google. I could Google it, I guess.
I was expecting Agent Ether
Back me up
to be
on
like,
this.
oh yeah, that. Let me tell you about that.
Well, I mean,
guess.
if it adds on to the mystery, I mean, even the people though that built those lines, their disappearance was, rather strange.
And
they
sudden.
mysteriously
Yeah,
kind of
they
just
did.
suddenly disappeared, right? I mean,
Yeah, they think it was an invading tribe. I don't remember which one. I think it's in my notes somewhere.
From what I remember, it was because of that very possibly due to the lines itself was the shooting themselves in the foot, because those ancient rituals or whatever the hell they would be doing went over some of the pathways or the sacred pathways that they had already set in place, and it kind of just messed up the ecosystem within the area. I don't know. I'm probably wrong, but either that or they're giving warning of what they hate around the area.
Those internet videos of people just like massacring themselves by handling a gun improperly,
What?
What, you never seen those ones?
Nope.
What, shooting yourself in the foot? That's what it reminded me of. You ever seen those ones? No? Okay, never mind.
No,
that.
I've never
I'm
seen
just
those.
thinking of like Planet of the Apes, like the promos when they had that, when they would like grab a gun and then like look down the barrel of it. Like,
I don't watch that many random internet videos, but like the kind of stuff the last one I watched was cats that sound like Arnold Schwarzenegger or something, right?
Yes. Yeah, I did too. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
I think I sent that to did I send that? I don't think I sent that to Kruger.
Was that?
No, I need that though.
Yeah.
Were you the? Was it
keep the
Soul Pillar? Was it Agent Soul Pillar that sent us that?
You mean Agent Peak or Locke? Agent Locke. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Agent Locke.
The
Yeah,
agents
yeah.
got growing.
that was me that discovered that.
Okay.
I was just Googling I Googled Arnold noises because I'm a weird person and that's just the kind of thing I do.
Did you really? That's very random.
I'll send this video to
Whoa,
Agent
dude.
Kruger right now, but watch it later maybe because, I don't
don't
know.
hit me
I'm not
later.
really sure if we're allowed to play somebody else's audio or not. So I'll send it to you.
It is a video, so context is important, and like the listeners may not they won't get. The context isn't going to be there.
And up
That's
it
why
will
we
go.
had Discord.
And up it will go on social media.
Yeah, we'll
Did you
put
say
it
disco?
Discord. We'll probably put it in Discord.
Oh.
But the title of the video is it's If Cats Sounded Like Arnold, and it's stupid. It's one of the dumbest things I've ever seen,
But
but
it makes you laugh.
it's also hilarious.
Yeah,
It's
and
one
the
of those
listeners
things.
should also probably go on YouTube and look up a song by this fella. He's a country fella.
Uh-oh.
His name is Mojo Nixon.
Don't do it.
No, I'm
Oh,
gonna
that's
do it.
somebody
I'm gonna
else.
do
That's
it.
somebody. That's not even
No.
Arnold's voice, though.
No, I'm doing it.
that.
No,
I think
I'm
we'd be
doing
okay
it.
if we give credit to the YouTuber or whoever made that.
Yeah, I don't think that's Arnold clips. I think that's somebody imitating him. Yeah, but it's still funny though. Yeah.
Mojo Nixon, and the song you need to look up is "Tie My Pecker to My Leg."
What?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Well,
yeah.
do that at your own
I
risk.
bet you hate
know?
having to do that.
Yeah, whatever
it's a
Agent
great
ETA
song.
suggests to look at online, it's at your own risk.
I can sing it for you. You want me to sing it for you?
No. We don't need those copyright strikes.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they'll copyright.
Yeah, you're right.
Anything.
No, you're right.
We're not even on YouTube, so I don't know how that works on other platforms, except for they'll probably just be like, nope. You do not have the rights to use this, so screw
You
you,
hum
buddy.
that damn song. Too
True
familiar.
enough.
Yeah.
I'll do it this
right.
time. I'll do it this time.
What?
Back to the Nazca
Yeah.
Lines.
All right. Back to the Nazca. There we go.
And now it's time for the Alien Conspiracy Podcast. Okay. Just start doing the intro over again.
One of the theories so I watched the episode. I'm sure they've covered it a couple of times because the ancient aliens, they tend to recycle material sometimes. But I saw an episode that they did on the Nazca Lines, and one of the interesting ideas was, they say stuff and it goes by so quick. I'm like, wait, go back and talk about that a little bit more. But they said on there that, now take it with a grain of salt because this is ancient aliens, but they said on there that there were like magnetic anomalies in the area, and that under like the lines themselves, there were like magnetic fields that they couldn't explain why. Usually when there's a magnetic field in the ground that's anomalous, they can tie it to some sort of mineral deposit or something like that. But they were saying that, or at least suggesting that these magnetic anomalies could not be tied to anything that we could figure out. And they said that maybe there was some mysterious mineral in the area that we were not aware of, that the aliens had come to mine back in the day.
Well,
and they also said, yeah,
that's very interesting. If I might be able to just interrupt you real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's very interesting that you've said that, because I've actually seen quite a bit of video, because Peru, like I mentioned before, is one of those areas I am very interested in, like the ancient megalithic structures within, and there has been quite a bit of structures that like people will, for example, take like a compass up to. The compass starts spinning out of control when it gets next to this particular stone, and within a complex or something like that, or within, a ruined structure. And it makes no sense. Like, what that is doing. And, well, no, there's been a lot of like magnetic, like fields that have been measured coming out of some of these structures, and it makes no sense. Like for example, like a cell phone or a satellite phone, like will become completely unusable within a certain like area. You know what I mean? And I mean, I'm not smart enough to like explain what's going on as I'm watching this stuff, but I know I've seen those videos, and they don't seem to be faked to me. I mean, I could have been fooled. You know what I mean? For sure. But I find that very interesting, because a lot of these structures are also built like on intersecting magnetic ley lines on our planet. So
Yeah.
I don't think that's a coincidence.
Yeah, that's actually, I want to do a whole episode on ley lines eventually, because it's an interesting topic. But
Oh yeah.
we'll get to that eventually. Yeah. But the lines themselves, they also said that they conduct electricity or something. And it's
That
like,
it's like an electric diagram.
yeah.
Maybe not that they conduct electricity.
No, they said they conduct electricity.
Oh, not just that
Yeah.
it's like a diagram.
But they, like if you've seen Ancient Aliens, you'll know like they do some stuff where they'll just throw it out there and mention it, and then like 30 seconds of it, and then they move on to another topic. But I'm like, wait,
Well,
go back to that. That was really interesting.
My favorite part is how they set up their statement. Like some people have said, and I know I use this shit too, to be quite honest, because it's part of my comical shtick. It's like I love this shit because I just find it so funny. Some people have said, or it has been surmised, or you could say, that's the most common one. You could say,
say anything.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Well, and that's a really clever way to get away from any sort of responsibility. Like, let's say I said, Agent ETA is a piece of crap. If I just said that, that's like, what is it? Is it like libel or slander? I forget which one, right?
Or just rude.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I'll
but-
tell you one thing, it wouldn't be the first time.
But if I said, some people say Agent ETA is such and such, I'm not saying it, so I'm no longer liable for it. It's brilliant. It's the easy button.
Genius.
Yeah.
I haven't really seen many episodes of Ancient Aliens.
Oh my God, you should. It is a hoot
It's a
and a
good
holler,
laugh.
I tell you what.
Oh yeah, especially the guy that looks like he bit into a live wire.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I know there's some fans though. People like
Giorgio
it. It's a
Tsoukalos.
popular
Yeah.
show.
Well, here's the
Well,
thing
the
about
frustrating thing is, like, they do mention some things that are legit, but then they also just throw enough. Like at first, like the first couple seasons, I remember when it came out, like I was a big fan, and I was like, oh, cool, dude, like another show that's gonna touch on stuff that I'm interested in,
Yeah.
and but very quickly I realized, okay, this is just all being sensationalized, and like there's definitely an effort to make this seem ridiculous,
Yeah. Well, it seems like they have all the personalities they have on the show are sort of like they start with something that's sort of like, okay, that's plausible. And then they move on to something that's a little less plausible. And like by the time they get to like Giorgio Tsoukalos, or what's that guy's name? Like David Wilkes or whoever, those guys are just like, well, whoa, like way out there. Like, like it just gets crazier and crazier. Like and each guy Like they have like Eric Von Daniken, by the way, is on that show quite often, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But like his stuff he's a little more grounded in what he says. Whether or not you agree with him, he at least bases it on something, right? And then you get to like Giorgio Tsoukalos, who like for example on the Nazca Lines, he was talking about the astronaut guy, which some people call him the astronaut, some people call him the giant, whatever. I'm not convinced he looks like an astronaut, but hey, why not? Let's say he does. But the figure itself looks like it could be a humanoid figure with one hand pointing up and one hand pointing down, right? So what Giorgio says, well, this looks like a guy who's pointing up the sky with one hand and pointing down to the earth with another hand, as if he's saying, look up there. We saw something up there. We saw aliens up there flying overhead.
Or could he
be
saying as above, so below?
Yeah,
we're here and you're there.
Or he said something along the lines of that, like he was pointing up to the sky to say that there's aliens up there flying above the earth, which he was indicating with his other hand, pointing down or something. I was like, I'm not seeing that, buddy. I mean,
It's
cool,
actually, this gives me an idea.
cool story.
This gives me an idea. Maybe the astronaut really represents a giant, because that's kind of a popular thing that the earth used to have giants on it.
Yeah.
The Nephilim?
Right, exactly. So maybe the giants created the lines.
Oh,
You
shit.
like that?
Could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How big are these giants supposed to be? I don't know much about them.
Triumphant.
They'd have to be pretty big.
No, I meant in popular current popular culture. How big are these giants supposed to be? Are they just like 10 feet, 20 feet?
Oh, yeah. The
Big ass giants.
It depends
Well,
on
they vary.
what story and what region you're looking at, but they're generally like, 10 feet or something like that.
Oh, well, that's not that big.
No, not big enough to draw the lines.
I mean, how big was
Yeah.
Andre? I mean, that's 10 feet's completely plausible.
Andre the Giant was friggin' huge.
Yeah.
But he was,
Hannibal and then
let's see. I think Andre the Giant, he was like 7 foot something, wasn't he? I'm going to use the power of the internet here. Let's see.
No, what about Maximus Thrax? That one of the Roman emperors.
7'4". Hey, Maximus Raximus was not in The Princess Bride, so whatever, dude. I don't care.
Maximus Thrax. Maximus Thrax, the one that actually recorded in history, was at about 8 foot.
See, I don't think 10 feet is that implausible. I just
Right.
don't. I think that's totally.
Neither do I.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there was so
Reasonable.
much carbon in the air at one point too that there was anybody that was resembling a human back in the day, they would be massive. I mean, there was so much shit in the air. We went through different cycles where, our environment dictated how the creatures walking on Earth, lived. Some had hardened skin and armored plating, thus having, something like the Triceratops and others, Stegosaurs and all that stuff. And then you move on from that to, big aqua area or big aqua era where, you have a lot more fish in the ocean, everything's underwater. And I don't know. It's just shit goes, our Earth has been through some drastic cycles.
We could use some more fish in the ocean now.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
Or at least clean fish. Or we could just stop throwing shit in the water.
Yeah.
That helped.
A little late for that.
I mean, I think we're catching on to it. I mean, it might as well better late than never, right? I mean,
I
we do
suppose.
only have a trash pile the size of Texas to deal with. But hey, you know what?
Yeah, like
It's a start.
a big giant pool, like a continent size floating thing of plastic beads or whatever it is, right? Like,
Yeah.
Anal beads.
Well, the Dixie Fire was as big as the state of Rhode Island.
wow.
So
Okay.
if we want to do some comparisons here, I was like, that is one big fire. I think it's still burning.
And somebody blow that out already.
Yeah, no kidding.
I know it's only the size of Rhode Island. How hard could it be to put that out?
I mean, literally, the state is on fire. I mean, the country is on fire. I mean, the world is on fire. I hate taking ecology courses because this is exactly what they were talking about happening later
Yeah.
on in life.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh God, it's actually happening. It's I don't think it'll get as bad for our time. I mean, it's gonna get bad, but I pity, the future generations. It's like,
Yeah, my kids
but-
worry
yeah.
about climate change. They're
Yeah.
10 and 13 and they worry about climate change.
Yeah. My niece and nephew do about the same thing, and our young generation right now is smarter than ever. Coming right off the bat with technology in their hand.
Yeah.
So
All right, let's get back to the Nazca Lines.
I think we've said that like 10 times this episode.
There's a lot of diversions on this one, I suppose, but that's how it always goes. Yeah.
We're waiting for our fellow agent.
I don't know if we talked a lot about some of the specific lines, but I think we maybe Ether might have mentioned it. There are some lines, like there's a bird that looks like he has like an electrical sign. Like, have you ever seen an electrical diagram and it's got some of those wavy things or whatever? It looks like a saw wave. There's a bird that has like that as part of his head, and like some of the glyphs kind of look like electrical diagrams.
Yeah, like antennas and receptors and switches.
The one you're talking about was called the heron, I think. Was it the heron? Yeah. That was one of the bigger ones. That one is huge. And like, yeah, you're right. Like the neck and between the body and the head, what I would think would be the head, I suppose. It looks like a freaking like a radio wave or like exactly like what you said, like an electrical diagram,
like a saw wave. Looks like exactly like a saw wave.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. What's up with that?
And the parrot, like that one that's called the parrot, looks like it has like a tuning fork on its ass or some shit.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't know what the hell that means. What is that supposed to mean?
I never seen a bird with a tuning fork on its ass. That's not normal.
That's a Pokemon.
Yeah. Oh, you know,
was that a Tunamon or something?
A Tunamon. Yes.
It makes sense now.
Yeah. I guess these were just the ancient Pokemon, I guess.
But not trading cards.
A Tunamon could be like the best Pokemon ever because the potential power it could have. See, I mean, everything in existence, right? Everything that you see as a solid or anything that you can see around you holds its own celerity to its own frequency, correct? Everything vibrates at a certain frequency, at a certain hertz.
Oh, yeah,
right?
That's true.
So even your own DNA does that. Your own DNA is like, it's almost like you could say it's like a fingerprint. You know, it has its own particular frequency that it vibrates at.
So that's why we twerk.
I'm not twerking. Are you twerking?
Darn it. Are you kidding me?
Curiously, ferociously twerking.
Really, dude? I was starting to get into the weeds right there, man, and I just got like completely derailed.
I missed the whole twerking bus though.
No, I do appreciate twerking.
I just never partake myself.
When done, well, I'm not talking about me twerking. Are you kidding me? No. I'm just talking about when it's done right. When it's done right, you know, that's some good shit right there.
I'm too old for that. I'm just throw up my back if I try it.
You're not that old.
I'm too old to do that.
You just gotta do enough core exercises.
More core.
Yeah, P90X, yo. It's a good one.
Yeah. Hey, well, the original one, it takes a lot of time, but holy crap, it works.
Hell yeah.
One of my cousins has one of the, like, this, it looks like a skateboard, like one of those mini skateboards like you would use in a video game, like for the Wii or something like that, and you stand on it, and like there's these little motors that kick up when you press the on button, and it just shakes your entire body, and it's just it's the auto twerker.
Like a little earthquake simulator.
Do you stand on a platform and it doesn't have a big waistband that goes around your love handles? And
that's exactly what I was hoping when you would say. Yeah, I know it's very similar to that, but just without the band. And it's actually very, very pleasant. Like if you've been standing up for a long time or your back hurts, it helps. It's great.
I could see that. Kind of shakes everything loose.
Not a sponsor for it, but yeah, definitely. If you guys know it, you should definitely try it. Get it.
Oh, okay. Dude, that could probably shake so many farts out of you and stuff. You had,
oh, most definitely.
Well, I mean, if you had some hiding in a corner somewhere in your bowels, you know, probably shake that shit loose.
Hey, get out of there.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Sometimes those can be the worst ones too, because they've been sitting there soaking up the sauce, you know?
I like sauce.
Okay, well, back to the Nazca Lines.
He's laughing because I'm just shaking my head.
There's one more glyph that I wanted to talk about. And I didn't see a whole lot of talk about this one, but they did talk about it on Ancient Aliens. Linda Moulton Howe was talking about it. And it's this 6-mile long triangle. It's like a perfect triangle. And the thing that's really interesting about it is it's sort of it's not just a line, but the whole thing is depressed. The way she described it was, it looks like somebody like stamped down on it and squished down the whole area. I don't think she used the word squished, but the thing is, like, if if people were to make this, that's so much material to move. Even at a 6-inch depth, the minimum depth of 6 inches. I couldn't find how deep this particular one is. Even at six inches of depth, the area of this triangle must be phenomenal. And that is just such a tremendous amount of earth to move. It's unbelievable. Yeah. So
Even
I found
with 6
that
inches,
one to be,
as long as you know how to use it, I mean, you could do some serious damage.
For which?
What?
I don't know.
I was just saying,
What?
even with only 6 inches, you can still do some serious damage. If you know
right. Yeah.
how to
If
use it.
you know how to swing that thing around, you get the job done, But,
Yeah.
but yeah, just the sheer size of this thing, and they showed pictures of it, and I was like, dude, that thing is so they're so huge. Like, how would people move all that dirt? Where would they have? Well, it's kind of like pebbles and rocky soil, but where would they have moved it? Like, the whole thing is just kind of weird. And I don't know, it looked like only the edges where the lines were visible. In the middle, maybe that's why she said it looked like it had been pressed down, because it didn't look like the clay underneath had been exposed. It just looked like it had been kind of pressed down. It's just so weird. But I don't know what to make of that one, but I just wanted to mention it. But I think so. Ether, do you have some theories that you haven't mentioned yet?
Oh man, we went through most of them.
Okay.
For sure. The ones I have left are really fringy and don't have great explanations.
Yeah, but those are some of the fun
I
ones.
don't know. So there's this one where they had the Nazca people had a lot of knowledge about looms because they were famous for their tapestries. So the idea is they kind of scaled up this loom technology, and they had hundreds of men using strings in order to lay them down and draw these straight lines. And the way that so then they would be able to, they would organize all these people, and their positions would be defined by these lines.
That definitely seems possible. Like maybe that's the reason why some of those ancient rotted sticks were there,
I saw that one and I found it kind of confusing because I thought, are they trying to make a big giant 600 foot
Right.
jacket or something?
There's no evidence for that. No, I think it has to do with the technology, scaling up the technology.
Oh, I see. Okay, I misunderstood when I read that. I was like, dude, if they hadn't been making 600 foot long jackets, we would have found them, right? There would have been some evidence of that. And how are you going to get the materials for that? There's not enough sheep on the planet for that, right? That's a lot of sheep or whatever.
I think they're alpacas and llamas.
Okay, well, whichever. They didn't have enough to
They
make
were
that
very,
size of
very
clothing.
talented
Hey,
traders.
those alpacas can be a real asshole. I was just at a wedding where they had 3 alpacas.
Why?
Just
Why?
owner
Hang out.
shit.
I don't know why. It was just the owner of the land where we were having a reception.
Why not?
It was pretty awesome. And it was, you can't
we
look
talking
at
about
them.
here?
You can't pet them. You can't get near them because they'll spit, kick, and shit on you or
But
fart
they
on
look
you.
so cute, though.
I know
They
they're
are
awesome,
pretty
right?
cute looking.
Yeah, they are. It's true.
You just got to look at them and be like, oh, you're looking at you, alpaca.
I dare you to walk up to an alpaca and say that.
He will mess you up.
You're right. That is a statement that is made by somebody who's never actually met a real one in life. In the actual,
I think
So,
I've
yeah.
seen them at the zoo. I don't think I've ever pet one though.
Yeah, I may have seen one at a zoo at some point in my childhood or something. I don't remember. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I tried petting one, but he was a spitter.
So are llamas better?
I
a
think
llama
they're
be more
both.
calm or
I
something?
think
or-
they're both assholes. I think it doesn't matter.
Equally
Camels.
So it's
and-
so it's like a cat, like a domesticated cat. I gotta just put this out there. I'm not a cat person,
Yeah.
but I have met a cool cat in my day. You know what I mean? There's a couple cats. I think they're way more hit and miss than a dog would be. You know what I mean? Yeah, there's bad dogs out there, but there's also like cats. If they're big enough, they would kill you. It doesn't matter if you're their owner.
they
or
got
whatever.
that hungry look in their eyes.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to them that you're the one feeding them, and a dog will respect that and recognize that. I feel, but a cat, nah, man, you scratch their belly the wrong way, they're gonna try to devour your hand.
It's like diffusing a bomb all the time. I have it if I deal with a
Yeah.
cat.
There's plenty
Yeah.
of stories to prove that cats are not your friend. So when you have an elderly person with a pet and they unfortunately pass away, if they have if you're squeamish, maybe don't listen to this next part, but we're getting ready for Halloween here. So, if somebody passes away and they have a pet with them, if it's a cat, they'll wait 5 minutes and they'll start chowing down. If it's a dog, the dog will be like crying over them and just like howling and being all sad and stuff, you know, like they're just two completely different animals. The cats, yeah, they're not your friends, you know. To a cat, all you are is a meal that's just too big for them to eat right now. They'll get you eventually.
And they're tremendously better than us too. You can't forget that, right? They're the owners of the house.
You ever see a pet cat? You know, he's just sitting there staring at you. You know what's going through his head, right? He's like, if I could just figure out how to eat that fucking thing, you know? The gears are running. They're like, what if I do this? No, that wouldn't work. What if I do this? Oh man, I want to eat that thing, you know, but I can't.
But there are some cats that are cool as hell.
Oh yeah. I've met one that it was amazing. It was fat, overweight, lived on a table, couldn't get off or it'd get mauled by the dogs that live there. And it had a little like birthed in Hitler stash. I kid you not. Like,
Okay.
Yeah, like right on and it was cockeyed too. It was cross-eyed. It was a cross-eyed fat Hitler
cat.
stash cat.
Oh.
It was awesome.
This sounds like
one of the
a very
sweetest
unique cat.
Talk about
it was
strange
beautiful.
things. Maybe like the mind boggle.
There's a new. I think we've discovered a new cryptid here.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, Sophie.
Yeah, you did.
Oh, yeah.
But anyways, back to the Nazca Lines.
Oh
Okay,
shit!
all
For like
right,
the 10th
so-
time.
Another kind of far-reaching theory is there's a relationship between the Nazca Lines and population control.
Really?
Yeah, and there's two ways you can look at this. One is that when there were times of famine and there was little rain and the population decreased, then they would draw these lines to appease their gods and ask for rain, so that you can kind of, if you were able to date the lines or interpret the lines, they would show you the cycles of population among the Nazca people. And so then you can look at it another way too, and you could say, well, this is not my theory. I always like to, start with that. If you as the ruler of the Nazca people are concerned because it's a time of famine or there's just not enough food, what you can do is you can put this people to work so that they're too tired and too busy to reproduce.
Okay. But if you put them to work, they're going to need more calories, right?
I didn't say it was my theory.
Okay.
People are really excited about population control. I feel like it's kind of a hot topic. So
Yeah, it is a hot topic. Yeah, I thought you were going to tie it into something more modern, but
no, that was just the theory.
okay. Well, hey,
So-
I'm willing to entertain various theories. It's all good fun,
And we were talking a little bit about zodiac signs and astronomy and that sort of thing. And there's also a relationship between the Nazca Lines and solar eclipses. And some of the constructions coincide with certain solar eclipses. So you can say, well, this particular geoglyph would have been made during the time of this solar eclipse, and it points in that direction. And they called it the Eye of God. I don't know why they call it that.
Interesting. Well, maybe because if there's a solar eclipse, then it looks like an eye, I guess. Maybe. I don't know.
It's supposed to be seen. I think it's supposed to be seen by the eye of God.
Oh,
So we're
okay.
talking a lot about like ancient aliens and visiting our planet. A lot of people don't want to talk about mysticism, right? The fact that, well, these people did believe in their ancestors looking down upon them, or maybe in a higher power. And is that an explanation? Like, we don't know. We don't know anything about what happens in the afterlife or where our ancestors go, or if we're, taken up somehow. So, I mean, that's an explanation too.
Yeah. And there's actually, at the end of the day, there's so little evidence for any of these Nazca lines. And for me, the main thing for me is what I mentioned earlier. Why would they make them so dang big? To me, it seems like they were clearly trying to draw signs for somebody in the sky, whether that's gods or whether it was, actual visitors from space, or whether they saw some sort of celestial event, like even just meteor showers, and they interpreted that as being somebody flying around in the sky. I think they definitely made these things for somebody in the sky. Now, who that is, there's really no way to know. And it's just kind of fun to speculate about. But it's hard for me to say that these things were made purely for irrigation or whatever, when you cannot even fathom what the shape of it is without being way up in the air. If it was made for some ceremonial purpose, for religious purpose, for irrigation or whatever, my thought is that they would have been much, much smaller so that you could easily see them. Even if they're really big, even 50 feet across, you could still see them from the ground. And they would have drawn them so that if you stood at the foot of it, you could see it, like, because it'd be elongated or whatever. Like, they would have made it to where you could understand what these drawings were from the ground one way or another, not made them to where you literally had to be up in the air to understand what they were besides just squiggly lines.
At the same time, the drawings are kind of crude. If you think about it, they're not terribly artistic. They're somewhat crude.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you look at, they're very precise the way they're drawn, and especially like the geometric ones.
Like the one with the monkey's tail, and it's like a spiral.
And there's one that's just like these geometric shapes and stuff that has like the golden ratio in there and stuff. And they're very symmetrical. Like I can't draw. You give me a pencil and a paper, I can't draw something 6 inches across that's that symmetrical. You try doing it 600 feet across or 1,000 feet across, forget about it. I don't understand. It's like, there's no way. There's no way I'm going to be able to do that.
I actually wish I'd taken more notes on very specific geoglyphs, because but there's so many. There's so many.
There's
I didn't know which
and
ones
hundreds
to pick.
of them.
Yeah.
They've discovered a lot more recently than we knew even existed in the area.
And by recently, we mean like a couple of years.
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier, it seems like starting in about 2018 or so, they started discovering a lot of them.
I have that they've recently discovered 143, and my favorite one was a two-headed snake feasting on humans.
Nice.
Yes.
Now, I don't mean to blow it out of proportion, but do you think it was something that like the whole world was just witness to these lights that would just cruise across the sky, and they were like, oh, those aren't natural lights or whatever the hell they were. And they were just, trying to throw down like whatever they would think is something that would show like, hey, we're advanced. We can draw pictures in the earth. Look at
kind of like an
us.
SOS.
Right. There you go.
An SOS in the sand.
Like you got we got the candelabra in Peru as well, and I'm not sure, like it almost looks like a cactus to me, but it's.
Are you talking about the trident geoglyph?
No, yeah, if you look at the base of it, the base is way too symmetrical and regular, like there's right angles. If it was a cactus, I figure it wouldn't have like those sharp angles and like those. I don't know, like the top of it looks like it could maybe be a plant, but look at the base. Are you looking at a picture of it right now, Agent Kruger?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, look at the base of it. Look how even that looks. It looks, I don't know. I mean, you could, it's hard to say what it is. They call it the candelabra. Maybe
I think it's a rocket ship.
Maybe it's a cactus. Yeah, if you turn it upside down, right?
Yeah, right.
Looks like
that,
a rocket.
or it looks like a Space Invader.
Yes, exactly.
Rocket Man.
And then there's but the other one that I wanted to pitch this in was that, what if it was just master art, not artisans, but because you have the other one in Peru that's the tapestry, where it's like a rug basically. So what if they were just flexing, like, hey, we can do this, huh? Why don't you show us what you got? You got your pile of rocks over there in Stonehenge. Fuck you! I got a spider. I don't know. But yeah, it's definitely fascinating nonetheless.
Yeah. It's just really interesting just to say, what if, it's what the hell are these things? Why were they made? And, who made them? Or we know who made them, but I mean, how did they make? I don't know. It's just really weird. Like,
well, we think we know. It could be a very similar thing as opposed, like, for instance, in my opinion, like the Incas, the structures that are, attributed to the Incas, I think those were actual ruins that they, re-inhabited, because there's Inca era structures that have been definitely, identified as being made in that era, like by, Europeans. But I mean, how accurate that is, I don't know. But at any rate, there seems to definitely be layers of civilizations that at one point or another, like took over ruined structures, that were the earliest the earliest ones are always the best constructed.
Construction.
I'm not familiar with that. It could be a good topic for another episode, I think.
Oh, for
Agreed.
sure.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It's one I definitely hope we touch on eventually. But like what I'm saying though is like, so a lot of these geoglyphs, it could be the case that these geoglyphs are very, very ancient, but they were found by the Nazca culture that we know of, and they were, reappropriated, I guess you could say.
Right.
You know what I mean?
They still would have had to view them, though, from very high up.
Right.
Yes.
Which is
Yeah.
so strange. That's the strangest part to me, is I can't understand, like, why would they make them so big? And if you're going to, like, if you draw a painting, you can take a step back and look at it and go, okay, this one turned out good. It's ready, to go to whoever paid me to paint this. But if you're making these glyphs, you can never double check them to make sure they're correct, right? They're so big that you're not going to know that you did it right. You draw these, you can never see them as a shape. You're not going to know that you did it correctly. It's such a strange thing. But all right, do you have any other theories for us, Ether? No?
No, I think that pretty much sums it up. We went over a lot of different theories.
Yeah, we touched on a lot of them.
Yeah.
All right, well, I guess let's wrap it up. We're about an hour and a half. Probably edit that down a little bit to who knows what.
Okay.
But
If I can make a tribute real quick, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
No.
I would like to thank Norm Macdonald for everything he has ever done, all the entertainment and enjoyment that I've got from him. I don't know if you guys know, but Norm Macdonald just recently passed away.
Oh, no way. I didn't see that. No.
Yeah, it was a couple of days ago now at the time of this recording. But yeah, I think that Norm Macdonald was one of the greats of stand-up comedy and comedy just in general of our generation. And he's definitely going to be well missed.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, stand-up individual, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's when they kicked. I remember when they kicked him off of SNL. It's like, well, why even watch that show anymore? Like,
yeah, that's right about the time I lost interest with it.
Yeah.
He's
a real talent. I did not hear that, and that's very unfortunate. Well, our thoughts go out to his friends and family, and it's sad to lose somebody of that talent.
Yeah, he's a legend, true legend.
Yeah, watching some of his interviews were some of the most funniest things. I mean, like the one, I think, not the most recent, but he was on Conan, and he decided to just basically improv after the commercial break, because he said, "Hey, and we'll be back with more, more Warren McDonald." And he was like, "Wait, what?
Oh, dude.
You're not done with me?" And then he basically just turned a couple second joke into a 5-minute joke just to bleed out the clock. And it was hilarious.
Dude, the interactions, that's some of the best late night I've ever seen in my life. The interactions between Conan O'Brien and Norm Macdonald, like they had this chemistry between them. You know what I mean? Like it was comic. Some of it was comedical genius, whatever, if I'm pronouncing that right, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's some of my favorite stand-up late night, I'm sorry, that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Norm. Yeah.
All right. Well, Norm, you will be missed. And on that note, let's go ahead and wrap it up for this week's episode. Thanks for listening. You can follow the show on Twitter at AlienConPod. We also have an email address, alienconpod@protonmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Discord.
Keep it strange.